I wasn't expecting this from Stellar. Not this soon, not this quietly. While everyone's distracted by Bitcoin's climb to $100,000 and Ethereum ETFs, Stellar just made a DeFi move that could reshape cross-border finance completely. This isn't just some testnet hype or community pump. This is real adoption in the real economy. And barely anyone is talking about it. The silent disruptor, what Stellar just pulled off. Nobody expected this from Stellar. Not the big YouTubers, not the crypto influencers on Twitter, and definitely not the institutions that have been laser-focused on Ethereum and Solana. But while the spotlight has been burning on everything from Layer 2 rollups to memecoins, Stellar just executed something that could redefine the entire value proposition of DeFi. And here's the crazy part, they did it quietly. No hype train, no over-the-top press tour, just results. In the last few weeks, something happened on-chain that almost no one is talking about. A DeFi protocol running on Stellar's Soroban smart contracts started processing real-world trade finance transactions. Not testnet transactions, not simulated liquidity, but actual invoices between real businesses. It's called Palago Labs, and what they're doing right now might be the first truly institutional use of DeFi infrastructure in a high-stakes trillion-dollar market. We're not talking about staking rewards or leveraged farming. This is a real TradFi service, trade credit, now running on-chain on a network built for speed, scalability, and compliance. This is real DeFi for the real world. Here's why that's so important. 4 years. We've been told that DeFi is the future, that smart contracts will replace banks, protocols will replace paperwork, and tokens will replace outdated settlement rails. But in reality, most DeFi has been about yield, not utility. And the vast majority of on-chain activity has been trapped inside a crypto-native echo chamber. Until now, what Stellar just pulled off flips the script. They didn't just talk about institutional adoption. They deployed the tools, launched the smart contracts, and onboard real businesses. They went from theory to execution while everyone else was still optimizing liquidity mining rewards. And if you look closely, it's all been building up to this. Stellar launched Soroban, a WASM-based smart contract platform, not as an Ethereum clone, but as a new kind of engine for compliant, scalable, real-world apps. Then they backed Palago Labs through the Stellar Development Foundation's $100 million matching fund, giving them not only capital, but technical support and network access. And Palago didn't waste time. They built a protocol that tokenizes invoices, allows institutional players to finance them through stablecoin-backed liquidity, and uses Soroban smart contracts to manage the lifecycle of that financing. That's not just a DeFi dApp. That's a real replacement for something banks have been dominating for over a century. It's the kind of move that only becomes obvious in hindsight. Think about this. While Ethereum is still trying to figure out scalable on-chain credit, and while other chains are chasing GameFi or social tokens, Stellar just quietly became a DeFi infrastructure layer for global trade. And Palago is proof that the strategy is working. That's why this moment is bigger than a single protocol. It's the signal that Stellar's approach, low fees, fast finality, regulatory alignment, and real business integration, is not just viable, it's working. So if you're wondering why XLM has been flying under the radar, this is why. Stellar isn't trying to win the retail hype war. They're focused on executing in a space that could unlock trillions in long-term utility, trade finance, cross-border payments, and stablecoin infrastructure. And what they just did with Soroban and Palago Labs, that's the beginning of something massive. DeFi meets the real world inside Palago Labs' big move. This is where it gets wild. Because what Palago Labs is doing on Stellar isn't just innovative. It's a direct challenge to the financial plumbing that props up trillions of dollars in global trade. And here's the kicker. Most people in crypto still have no clue what trade finance even is. Let's break it down. When two businesses trade across borders, say a manufacturer in Vietnam shipping textiles to a fashion brand in the US, there's often a 30, 60, or even 90-day delay before payment clears. That seller needs working capital now, not months from now. And traditionally, that means going through a bank or a specialized trade credit provider, paying a fee, getting financing, and waiting for the buyer to settle the invoice. That system works. But it's bloated, expensive, slow, and centralized, the very things DeFi was supposed to fix. Now here comes Palago Labs, running on Stellar. They're saying, what if we took that invoice, tokenized it on-chain, and let institutional DeFi liquidity finance it directly using stablecoins, all governed by Soroban smart contracts that manage the logic, risk, and payments? That's not DeFi for Degans. That's DeFi for enterprise. And it's already happening. Palago is live. Businesses are uploading invoices, financiers are bidding on them using USDC or EURC, and the Stellar blockchain is acting as the trustless layer in between. The invoices get tokenized, payments are automated, and the smart contract logic handles maturity, repayment, and liquidation triggers. That means no banks in the middle, no multi-day settlement delays, no off-chain paperwork hell. And the most impressive part? Palago's protocol just processed millions of dollars in trade volume in under a month. Let that sink in. This is real money, tied to real-world goods, moving on Stellar using smart contracts powered by Soroban. This isn't a theory. It's an actual DeFi primitive for B2B capital markets, operating on-chain at scale. And you know what this unlocks? Faster access to capital for businesses in emerging markets. New yield opportunities for institutional players looking to finance real-world assets. Stablecoin demand that's tied to productive use, not speculation. On-chain credit scoring possibilities based on invoice history and repayment data. This is an entire economy being re-architected quietly on Stellar. Meanwhile, Ethereum is still trying to onboard TradFi credit protocols through wrap tokens and Layer 2 workarounds. But Stellar skipped all of that. By baking compliance, identity, and low-fee transfers into the base layer, Stellar created a clean runway for institutional DeFi, and Palago was the first mover to take off. Think of it like this. Ethereum is the Wild West of finance. Solana is the experimental lab. But Stellar? Stellar is building the new financial highway, and Palago is already driving semis on it. And here's where it all connects, because when you tokenize invoices, finance them on-chain, and settle payments instantly, you create something bigger than just a DeFi protocol. You build a new liquidity network, one that doesn't rely on Wall Street, Swift, or clearinghouses. This programmable money plugged into global trade. So when you hear, I can't believe XLM did this, now you know. Stellar didn't just launch smart contracts. They used them to build an actual financial engine, one that could disrupt how capital flows between continents, how businesses fund themselves, and how yield is generated in a post-bank world. And the most bullish part? Palago is just the beginning. Soroban, the smart contract engine nobody saw coming. If you're wondering how Stellar, a chain that's been around since 2014, suddenly became the backbone of real-world DeFi, here's the secret: Soroban. And here's what's crazy. Most people still think Stellar doesn't even support smart contracts. But that was the old Stellar. In 2024, Stellar dropped a bombshell on the space with Soroban, a next-gen, WebAssembly, WASM-based smart contract platform, purpose-built to handle real-world financial apps. And not only did they ship it, they built it right into the core Stellar protocol. This isn't some half-baked add-on or Layer 2 hack. Soroban is deeply integrated into the Stellar Consensus Protocol, SCP, designed from day one for speed, scalability, and predictability. Let's break it down. Soroban versus Ethereum. The design shift. Ethereum's smart contracts are written in Solidity and executed on the Ethereum Virtual Machine, EVM. Powerful? Yes. But also gas-heavy, unpredictable in fees, and often clunky in performance. Soroban flips that. Language. Soroban is built on Rust, the same high-performance language behind Solana, Polkadot, and many next-gen protocols. It compiles to WebAssembly, meaning faster execution and tighter control over system resources. Fees. Stellar is known for near-zero fees, and Soroban inherits that DNA. Instead of unpredictable gas wars, Soroban offers deterministic pricing. No surprises, no chaos. Throughput. By piggybacking on Stellar's blazing fast consensus layer, Soroban can process transactions in 3 to 5 seconds. No mempool bottlenecks, no congestion crises. So what does this mean in the real world? It means developers can finally build DeFi apps that don't just simulate TradFi, they can replace it. Apps like Palago Labs can tokenize real-world assets, manage cash flows, calculate repayments, and trigger dispute resolutions, all on-chain with no centralized middleman, no bloated AWS backend, and no legacy infrastructure. And the best part? It actually works. Built for trust, not just speed. Here's where Soroban goes deeper than just tech specs. Stellar didn't build Soroban for hype. They built it for institutions, for regulated use cases where compliance isn't optional. Soroban includes native tools for contract metadata and versioning, meaning long-term auditability, event logging and transaction introspection, so you can actually prove what happened. Security primitives that are designed to prevent runaway fees, reentrancy attacks, and smart contract exploits before they start. This is the level of maturity DeFi needs if it ever wants to power real financial markets. And Stellar shipped it before most people even knew Soroban existed. But they didn't stop there. Dev incentives plus real ecosystem support. The Stellar Development Foundation didn't just launch Soroban and walk away. They committed over $100 million to grow the ecosystem, with incentives for builders, matching funds for startups, and grants for tooling. That's how projects like Palago, Blend, and UltraStellar got off the ground so quickly. And Stellar didn't just target crypto-native devs. They went after enterprise partners. Why? Because the next DeFi boom won't come from retail. It'll come from institutions moving real-world assets on-chain, and Soroban is the tool they'll use to do it. In a space where hype cycles dominate and roadmaps get delayed for years, Stellar just delivered. Quietly, cleanly. And now Soroban is live, with smart contracts already securing capital across global borders. The big picture. Let's zoom out. Soroban isn't trying to beat Ethereum at its own game. It's not chasing NFTs or memecoins or flash loan casinos. It's playing a different game entirely, becoming the go-to smart contract layer for real-world finance. It's built for tokenizing invoices, automating B2B payments, running KYC-compliant DeFi rails, powering permissioned or open finance ecosystems. And with Soroban Live, Stellar now has the full stack. Instant cross-border payments, stablecoin rails, USDC EURC, smart contract automation, institutional DeFi access. That's the infrastructure play everyone's been waiting for, and Stellar quietly built it while everyone else was chasing speculative pumps. So yeah, I can't believe XLM did this either. And now that Soroban is live and running real money, it's game on. What the metrics reveal: XLM's quiet institutional surge. Let's get one thing straight: you don't need hype when the data speaks for itself. Because while the rest of crypto was distracted by ETF speculation and memecoin mania, on-chain signals on Stellar have quietly started to spike, and they're not coming from retail. They're coming from institutions. Let's break it down. Wallet growth, a silent wave. Over the past 6 months, the number of active Stellar accounts has jumped by over 35%. But that's just the surface. What's more interesting is who these wallets belong to. A huge spike in programmatically active wallets, interacting with Soroban smart contracts. Steady inflows and outflows in stablecoins like USDC and EURC, not from DX arbitrage, but from structured flows, suggesting automated settlement or trade finance activity. Lump sum transactions ranging from $50,000 to $500,000, occurring between wallets tied to Palago Labs and Treasury-linked addresses. These aren't Deegan farmers. These are operational wallets tied to business activity. And here's the clincher. The largest wallet clusters have consistent interaction patterns tied to invoice tokenization and repayment cycles. That's real-world DeFi, live, humming, and on-chain. Stablecoin liquidity not just sitting but flowing. If you want to trace the health of any DeFi ecosystem, follow the stablecoins. On Stellar, USDC volume has tripled since the launch of Soroban, and even more interesting, the average velocity, the rate at which tokens move, has increased by 42%. This is a strong indicator of productive liquidity, meaning stablecoins aren't just sitting in wallets, they're being used. And that usage, largely tied to Palago Labs invoice finance pools, cross-border treasury flows, yield-seeking capital from institutional desks. Why does that matter? Because it proves a core thesis. Stellar isn't just attracting speculative capital. It's becoming a stablecoin utility layer for real businesses. And as demand for stablecoin-based trade finance ramps up, especially in Latin America, Africa, and Southeast Asia, XLM's value proposition as the native gas and bridge asset becomes exponentially more important. Institutional breadcrumbs. Follow the signals. You want alpha? Here it is. Look at who is building on Stellar right now. Franklin Templeton already tokenized a money market fund on Stellar. Circle chose Stellar as one of the core chains for USDC, alongside Ethereum and Solana. Palago Labs, backed by the Stellar Development Foundation, is onboarding global businesses as clients. Cowry, a regulated payment provider in Africa, is processing stablecoin-powered remittances using Stellar rails. That's not speculation. That's real infrastructure deployed, active, and scaling. And Soroban is the unifying force behind it all. But it gets even more interesting, because institutions don't announce their moves on Twitter. They operate quietly, strategically, and the on-chain data shows that wallets tied to known finance hubs, Singapore, Switzerland, UAE, are increasing their activity on Soroban contracts. Add in the fact that XLM supply held by long-term holders just hit a 4-year high, and you've got a strong picture forming. Institutions are not just exploring Stellar. They're using it. Developer activity, the quiet build-out. You know what the smartest VCs look at? GitHub commits. And guess what? Soroban dev activity is on fire. Over 500+ smart contracts deployed to testnet in under 6 months. Massive engagement with the Stellar Community Fund, with builders from finance, logistics, and SaaS companies all getting grants. Integration tools being built for MetaMask-style wallets, analytics dashboards, and real-time invoice tracking, all powered by Soroban. And the kicker? Many of these tools are enterprise-focused. That means they're not just building a DEX or an NFT marketplace. They're building for B2B finance, tokenized invoices, lending, and cross-border supply chain settlements. That's what separates Stellar's DeFi strategy from the rest. TLDR. The metrics are screaming. Smart contract activity is up. Stablecoin velocity is up. Institutional wallet patterns are appearing. Developer commits are rising. Long-term holder supply is growing. This is the classic recipe for an under-the-radar breakout. And while everyone's chasing the next hype cycle, XLM is building the financial rails that real money is starting to move on. If you're wondering why price hasn't exploded yet, simple. Institutions front-run narrative. They build while retail waits for headlines. But when the world catches up to what Soroban plus Stellar plus Palago Labs are already doing, don't be surprised if XLM reprices aggressively, not from hype, but from real-world utility finally hitting critical mass. The future of finance might already be on Stellar. This is the part where we stop asking what if and start recognizing what is. Because if you've been paying attention, it's clear. Stellar isn't building hype, it's building infrastructure. And it just might be doing what everyone said couldn't be done. Let's zoom all the way out. A new foundation for global finance. The world runs on trust, capital, and settlement. And for decades, those three things were controlled by central banks, commercial banks, custodians, and clearinghouses, payment networks like SWIFT and Visa. But that system is cracking. It's too slow, too expensive, too exclusionary, and too centralized to handle the speed of modern markets. Stellar, powered by Soroban, is quietly offering something different. Not just a better blockchain. Not just another layer 1 trying to catch Ethereum, but an actual alternative infrastructure layer 4. Instant cross-border B2B payments. Automated, KYC-compliant DeFi protocols. Real-world asset tokenization. Stablecoin-powered trade finance. On-chain credit markets and invoice factoring. It's not vaporware. It's live. And the kicker? It's scalable, it's cheap, and it's built for institutions. Everything connects Soroban, Palago, and the XLM thesis. So let's tie it all together. Soroban provides the programmable logic, automation, and security layer. Palago brings the real-world use case, onboarding businesses and turning invoices into on-chain assets. XLM serves as the bridge asset, the gas token, and the native payment rail. USDC and EURC offer the stability layer, making this all usable by non-crypto native players. The result? A DeFi engine that doesn't rely on speculation, but rather on actual commerce. Every time a business tokenizes an invoice, every time USDC moves across Stellar rails, every time a smart contract processes a repayment, XLM becomes more essential to the machine. It's no longer about whether Stellar can scale to institutional finance. It's doing it right now. Why the market still hasn't priced this in. You're probably wondering, if all this is true, why isn't XLM already exploding? Here's why. Narrative lag. Crypto markets move fast on speculation, but they move slow on fundamentals. The world is still obsessed with meme coins, layer 2s, spot ETFs, Ethereum gas burns, Bitcoin having cycles. Meanwhile, Stellar has sidestepped all of it. It went straight for the real prize, becoming the on-chain financial backbone for emerging markets, cross-border businesses, and institutional capital. But here's the thing about infrastructure plays. They go unnoticed until they're everywhere. That's what we're seeing now. In Nigeria, businesses are using Stellar rails to settle trade. In Vietnam, tokenized invoices are being financed on Soroban. In Europe, money market funds are being issued via Stellar. In Latin America, USDC is moving faster on Stellar than through banks. And with every transaction, XLM becomes more valuable. Not just as a token, but as a core piece of modern financial infrastructure. The setup for an asymmetric bet. This is where things get interesting for long-term holders. Because while price action has lagged, everything else is leading. Institutional adoption, real-world utility, developer momentum, smart contract execution, stablecoin velocity. What you're looking at is a compressed coil, where fundamentals are outpacing price. When the narrative catches up, and it won't be a slow grind. It'll be a revaluation. Because the market doesn't need to believe in Stellar's potential anymore. It just needs to notice its reality. And when it does, the upside isn't 10%. It's exponential. Final thought. I can't believe XLM did this, but I'm not surprised. Back when Stellar launched, most people saw it as just another payment network. Then came USDC. Then came Soroban. Then came Palago Labs, institutional adoption, and real-world finance going on-chain. And now, XLM is powering a new financial system in plain sight, one invoice, one smart contract, and one stablecoin at a time. So yeah, we can say it now. I can't believe XLM did this. But for those who actually paid attention, we're not surprised. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that subscribe button on Be Crypto Smart. I bring you the real plays behind the noise every single week. No fluff, just signal. Let's keep building. Let's keep digging. And let's stay ahead of the narrative.